Part 32. After wearing the book, I became the group favorite. Author, Little Ginger. Chapter 311. Chapter 311 Chapter 311 Random Thoughts. If Xiao Xiao had gone abroad with me, it would have been strange for Uncle Fu not to kill me to vent his anger. It's all my fault. He went to tell Xiao Xiao before he fully understood the situation. It's too late to regret it now. If I had known that this was the case, I will definitely help Uncle Fu Wu hide it from Xiao Xiao. Maybe he is slowly accepting Uncle Fu. After being teased like this by me, he must have decided that Uncle Fu Wu is a big scumbag. Chu Hanyu reacted and reflected deeply. Chen Baiking. If Xiao Xiao completely gives up on Uncle Fu Wu, then I will become a sinner. Uncle Fu really loves Xiao Xiao. I have watched him for so many years. This will cause great trouble. Chen Baiking. The more Chu Hanyu thought about it, the more desperate he became, and the eyes he stared at Chen Baiking were pitiful. Chen Baiking. Just such a small thing made her fantasize so much, it was just random thoughts. In his opinion, Zhang Xiao was her good friend. When he saw that the person his good friend liked was engaged to someone else, anyone would tell his friend. This was out of concern for his friend. If you are confused, you will naturally not say that you are imagining other things. Now that things have happened, he can only accept them, and he believes that Fu Jianxiu may have explained it when he met Zhang Xiaoxi yesterday. Whether Zhang Xiaoxi wants to accept it or not forgives Fu Jianxiu is her business, and Zhang Xiaoxi has never. He didn't mean to blame her. This little thing just loves to think wildly. Don't think too much, I believe nothing will happen to me. Chen Baiking comforted her. Chu Hanyu looked at him with frightened eyes. Chen Baiking, you don't know how ferocious Uncle Wu is. If it was about other things, Uncle Fu might spare my life, but as long as it's about ours, that's the kind of person who won't even spare his life. Chen Baiking frowned and looked at her, wondering how afraid he was of Fu Jianxiu. No, I still have to send a text message to Xiao, apologizing first, and explaining the matter again, so there may be a glimmer of hope. Chu Hanyu is a man of action, and he does what he says, and he opens WeChat with his slender fingers quickly. Slide across the screen. Chen Baiking glanced at her and was immediately convinced. In just 10 seconds, he had edited a long list of text, which showed how much he cared about this matter. In less than a minute, Chu Hanyu edited the message and sent it out. As if he had done something big, he breathed a sigh of relief and leaned back in his chair. This way, I won't have to deal with Uncle Fu Wu when I'm young. It's a grudge. As soon as Chu Hanyu relaxed, the phone rang. It was Mr. Fu's call. He pressed the answer button and picked up. Grandpa Fu. Nayuniu, have you seen the hour? Mr. Fu was sitting in the study and talking on the phone. Chu Hanyu. Is she in a bad mood? If she is in a bad mood, Grandpa will pay for you to go shopping and have fun. The old man was worried about Zhang Xiaoxiu's condition. Grandpa, you have a good time, don't worry, we will come back after a few days of playing, don't worry, I will be with you. Chu Hanyu lied with a blush, and kept telling himself that this was a white lie. I knew that girl would feel uncomfortable. After all, the feelings raised by Xiao Wu are different. You can help Grandpa persuade her. Grandpa will wait for you to come back, Mr. Fu said worriedly. End of this chapter. After wearing the book, I became the group favorite. Author, Little Ginger. Chapter 312. Chapter 312 Chapter 312 The second male character in the book. Chu Hanyu felt guilty in her heart. Zhang Xiaoxiao was not only feeling uncomfortable but also angry. Though he was thinking this in his heart, he answered in another way, Grandpa Fu, don't worry, I will definitely advise Xiaoxiao properly. Okay, you are all good children. Grandpa won't disturb you anymore. I'm done. Goodbye, Grandpa. Chu Hanyu hung up the old man's phone and tugged his hair irritably. Grandpa Fu didn't know about the relationship between Zhang Xiaoxiao and Fu Jianxiu. If he knew, there would be a storm in the family. Zhang Xiaoxi finished the sling bottle in the hospital and got on the plane back to Ruchin. During the few hours on the plane, Zhang Xiaoxi slept the whole time without saying a word to Fu Chenxiu, and the same was true after he got off the plane. Fu Chenxiu was following her, and the distance between them was no more than half a slap. As soon as he walked out of the airport door, a person appeared in front of Fu Chenxiu. "Senior, have you settled the matter in your company?" Wen Yueru stepped forward with a smile on his face and put his arm around Fu Chenxiu. Fu Chenxiu frowned slightly and dodged naturally. Wen Yueru held his arm tightly and whispered in his ear, "Senior, there are a lot of reporters waiting for interviews in front of us, and there are also a lot of paparazzi here to take pictures of us." Fu Chenxiu then allowed her to continue holding him, and he did not forget that there was a little girl next to him. He stretched out his hand to hold her, and the three of them walked side by side in the direction of Wen Yueru's car. Once they had completely exited the airport, the three of them were surrounded by a group of reporters. Reporter from Tomato Channel: "Mr. Fu, what are you going to do about your marriage to Miss Wen?" Xia Hongta reporter: "Mr. Fu, are you and Miss Wen having a double blessing?" Xia Lantai reporter: "Mr. Fu, can you tell me about the process of falling in love with Miss Wen?" Reporters from every station wanted to dig out some exclusive news, so they all flocked to the house. Wen Yueru went out without a bodyguard. During this crowding process, Zhang Xiao was squeezed out. He was already weak and fell down instantly. Fall to the ground. Zhang Xiao looked at his palm in pain, and it was bleeding from friction with the ground. He frowned and was about to get up, but suddenly there was a big palm in front of him. Zhang Xiao raised his head along his big palm, and when he looked up, what he saw was an extremely sinister face. It didn't look like the boss's sword-shaped eyebrows, but the kind of slender eyebrows, and his eyes were a little too small, and the tail of his eyes was the bridge of his nose is slightly upward and not high, but it is extremely beautiful on his face. "Are you okay?" The corners of the man's mouth turned up slightly, with a faint smile. Zhang Xiao did not stretch out his hand, but climbed up on his own. He said in the same voice as he usually did to other strangers, "I'm fine. I saw your hand was injured. Do you need to take care of it?" the man asked in a friendly manner. "No, I will handle it myself." Zhang Xiaoxi was not going to say anything more to him, but was about to move forward. This man intuitively told her not to have any interaction with him. Although he had a smile on his face, his eyes were full of tears. His eyes were cold. "I'll take you to the nearby pharmacy to get it sorted." The man blocked her way. Zhang Xiaoxia frowned and stared at the man indifferently. "I don't need it. We are not familiar with each other. If you stop me like this again, I will call the police." The man laughed deeply. "We will meet again, remember my name, Su Yuan's." Zhang Xiao's pupils shrank slightly. Su Yuan's, the second male lead in this book. She thought that the second male lead would never appear. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After wearing the book, I became the group favorite. Author: Little Ginger. Chapter 313. Chapter 313. Chapter 313. Guilt. The two men in the book are madly in love with the heroine. In her opinion, they are all a bit twisted. Why is he here now? Did you recognize me as Mo Zhangxiang? Zhang Xiaoxiao asked this question out of nowhere. Su Yuan's brown eyes narrowed, the corners of his mouth slightly curved, and he stared at Zhang Xiaoxiao. Who is Mo Zhangxiang? Is he someone who looks very similar to you? Zhang Xiaoxiao's delicate brows frowned slightly. The second male lead didn't know the female lead. The novel has not explained how the heroine and the second hero met. It seems that this person has always existed. Maybe they have not met yet. Zhang Xiaoxiao had various questions in her mind, but she didn't show it. Her expression was still as indifferent as before, and she continued to move forward without communicating with him. Su Yuan's looked at her retreating back, her steps somewhat empty, her brown eyes slightly narrowed, her eyes meaningful. Zhang Xiaoxi found a drugstore near the airport, bought iodophor and OK bandages, and treated the scratches on his hands. The door of the drugstore was opened, and Luo Yi appeared in front of Zhang Xiaoxi sweating profusely, breathing heavily. Sighing, "Miss, why did you leave without saying a word? I was squeezed out and my hand was slightly injured, come take care of it." Zhang Xiaoxiao raised his hand to him. Luo Yi looked at the injury on her hand and frowned. "Miss, is it serious?" "It's not serious." Zhang Xiao took his hand back, then stood up and walked to the door of the pharmacy. He turned back and looked at Luo Yi. "Aren't you here to pick me up? Are you still not leaving?" Luo Yi. Luo Yi drove Zhang Xiaoxi back to his old house. Before leaving, he said to Zhang Xiaoxiao, "Miss, the fifth master said he will come back after handling the matter." Zhang Xiao turned around and entered the old house as if Fu hadn't heard what he said. As soon as he stepped into the old house, the old man came in from the garden, his face glowing red, and he looked at Zhang Xiaoxi lovingly. "Grandpa's good grandson, why does he look so sick?" When Zhang Xiaoxiao saw the old man, he felt inexplicably better and smiled. "Grandpa, I'm back, but I forgot to bring you Chengdu's specialties." "Grandpa, I don't want anything, I just want to see my precious grandson." "I haven't told Grandpa yet why her face looks so pale. Is she sick?" The old man touched her forehead distressedly. Zhang Xiao sniffed and held his mouth and nose with his hands. "Grandpa, I caught a cold while going skiing. Please stay away from me and you will be infected later." "Grandpa, you're not afraid? Have you taken any medicine?" "Nyunio is dead. I asked her to find you." "Is she alive?" The old man looked towards the door. Zhang Xiaoxiao's mind was spinning quickly. "Grandpa, Hanyu went back. We went skiing together. She also had a little cold and went back. I asked why don't you come in and sit for a while, and Grandpa also said to give her some pocket money." "Grandpa, the Chinese New Year is coming soon. Please give me the same gift during the Chinese New Year." Zhang Xiaoxiao asked Butler Zhu to help the old man sit on the sofa. "This year's Chinese New Year is the happiest year for me, Grandpa. Your fifth uncle finally solved the major events in his life," the old man said cheerfully. Zhang Xiaoxiao looked at the old man's cheerful look, and the guilt in his heart increased. His relationship with Fu Chenexai was so difficult to talk about. If the old man knew about it, he would probably be extremely disappointed in her. End of this chapter. After wearing the book, I became the group favorite. Author, Little Ginger. Chapter 314. Chapter 314. Chapter 314. I'm sensible. "Child, what are you thinking about?" The old man saw that she was in a daze, so he called her and looked at her. Zhang Xiao came back to his senses, looked at the old man, and replied, "Grandpa, I didn't think about anything." "Hey." The old man sighed softly, with loving eyes. "When I was a child, Grandpa knew that you felt a little uncomfortable, and he also knew that you and your fifth uncle had a deep relationship. Your fifth uncle married when you were, and I was afraid that you would be unhappy, so I asked Nyunio to accompany you." "Jiangxi. Nyunio went skiing with you. Are you feeling better?" "When I was young, it was when you were who would accompany your fifth uncle through the long years. Grandpa hopes that you can understand your fifth uncle," the old man persuaded with sincerity. Zhang Xiao pursed her lips, her eyelashes trembled slightly, and her eyelids drooped. "Grandpa, I understand everything you said. Don't worry, I also like when you were. My dear grandson has become sensible." The old man looked at her happily. Zhang Xiao looked at the happy look in the old man's eyes, but the emotions in her heart were suppressed. Maybe she really couldn't do anything to hurt the old man. She didn't want to hurt people who were good to her. She should also let go of her feelings for Fu Xiu. This relationship is doomed to not be blessed, and may also hurt people who are good to you. Grandpa, I don't feel very well, so I'm going to go to bed first. You will ask the servant to call me during dinner. Zhang Xiao was afraid that his emotions would be leaked, so he found an excuse to leave. Okay, if you feel uncomfortable, go and rest. The old man was worried about her health and urged her to rest quickly. Zhang Xiao only met Fu Xiu twice when he came back from Rongcheng. Each time Fu Xiu left in a hurry, and it was time for the final exam in a blink of an eye. Chu Hanyu lay on the desk, half squinting his eyes, looking extremely sleepy and limp. Xiao Xiao, why is the math at noon today so difficult? I didn't finish most of the questions in the back. Zhang Shi was looking at her mobile phone without even raising her eyelids. The hot search on Weibo was a certain official with hundreds of millions in cash at home. While reading the news, he answered her, "Is it difficult?" Chu Hanyu said. "Can she not talk to the top student? After the exam tomorrow, Grandpa said he would take us to a hot spring to express his gratitude for going to Chengdu to accompany me," Zhang Xiao said. When it comes to Chengdu, Chu Hanyu wants to turn into a tortoise. It has been more than a week since she came back from Chengdu. She doesn't even know what the relationship between Zhang Xiaoxi and Fu Wushu is like. She sent such a long text message that day. Zhang Xiaoxi, it was okay to only reply her 2 words, which made her still in a state of fear. Now that she was asked to go to the hot spring, she felt a little guilty, but the old man asked her to go, which she absolutely could not refuse. Where to go for a dip? Grandpa said it was a very good place. I don't know exactly where it is, but the places Grandpa chooses are generally beautiful places, Zhang Xiao said. Then I go to Nangziyuan and we set off together, or do you pick me up? Chu Hanyu asked. We'll talk about it later, please memorize this first. Zhang Xiao handed her the English book, and she marked all the important contents in it. When I was young, I had no problem asking in English. Chu Hanyu had a headache now that he read the book. I want you to get full marks in the exam, Zhang Xiao said calmly. Chu Hanyu. Small, why didn't you draw the key points for me in math just now? Mathematics is alive, it's dead, it doesn't matter if she makes things difficult for you. Zhang Xiao frowned when he saw the latest breakthrough in the hot search on Weibo. End of this chapter. After wearing the book, I became the group favorite. Author, Little Ginger. Chapter 315. Chapter 315. Chapter 315. A man who values innocence more than women. Chu Hanyu is very sensitive now. When he saw Zhang Xiao, his eyebrows twisted and he immediately asked, "What's wrong?" Zhang Xiao handed her the phone to look at. The hot search content was: a man went in and out of the hotel late at night. Chu Hanyu looked like someone who was just trying to win over others. Could this man be Wenyuoru's real boyfriend? It has nothing to do with me. Zhang Xiao frowned and took the phone back and put it in his bag. Chu Hanyu guessed that everything she knew about Wenyuoru was told to her by Chen Baiking. If he was not his real boyfriend, he would not be photographed by the paparazzi, and even if he was photographed, he would be rejected by public relations. Child, is this the prelude for Uncle Fu Wu to say goodbye to Wenyuoru? After all, he has to explain to the masses. Both of them are well-known public figures, Chu Hanyu said. Zhang Xiaoxio's hand holding the phone tightened. Oh. Chu Hanyu thought that many big figures had stepped down recently. Even if she didn't pay attention to politics, she knew the reasons. After getting rid of all the people who should be removed, Fu Wushu was about to terminate the relationship with Wenyuoru. At that time, it was just to help the Wen family. When he said that Jiang Zhao came back from Rongcheng, he hadn't seen Uncle Fu very much. He must have been busy for these things. When Uncle Fu was busy, he would definitely deal with the problem between him and Zhang Hour, you are. Before Chu Han could say anything, the exam bell rang. She was assigned to a nearby classroom and had to rush back. Zhang Xiao was taking the exam at this station, so there was no need to go. Fu's group. When Yuuru looked at Fu Jianxiu resentfully, "Senior, you are not kind. Even if you want to end the as soon as possible, you can't accuse me of having a tryst with a man late at night. Fu Jianxiu never stopped signing on his hand. When I was young, I would get angry, and I was already confused with other women. Of when Yuuru. Senior, a woman's innocence and character are very important, so she doesn't have to use this method." When Yuuru looked at Fu Jianxiu with a headache. Fu Jianxiu raised his eyebrows and stared at Wen Yuuru seriously. "It's a fact that you spent the night with Nan Bei in the hotel. I can't have that kind of news. It's hard to explain and coax. The media doesn't dare to write about you. Wen Yuuru. A man who values innocence more than women. Senior, do you need me to explain it to you?" Wen Yuuru thought that Fu Jianxiu was trying to help his family after all. If he ruined his feelings, he would really be a sinner. "I've explained it," Fu Jianxiu said coldly. "Have you explained it?" Wen Yuuru looked at him in surprise and explained why his expression was still like that. This was not in line with common sense. "She doesn't believe you," a bold guess. As she expected, Fu Jianxiu's cold face turned gloomy. "It's okay, you can go help your brother get rid of those people." Wen Yuuru. Senior, women know women best. You can tell me the specific situation. I can help you analyze it and think of a solution, Wen Yuuru suggested carefully. Fu Jianxiu narrowed his cold eyes and stared at her. After a moment of silence, he told her Zhang Xiaoxi's reaction. Wen Yuuru basically analyzed it with her. "Senior, she believed your explanation and was angry because of other things." Fu Jianxiu looked like he was listening carefully and stared at Wen Yuuru. "Tell me the key points." End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After wearing the book, I became the group favorite. Author, Little Ginger. Chapter 316. Chapter 316. Chapter 316. I just think you are cheating on her. It's very simple for a woman to get angry because she thinks you're cheating on her, and what women hate most is cheating. When Yuuru leaned on the corner of the desk and glanced sideways at Fu Jianxiu's face. His brows were always furrowed. With. Take this matter as an example. Xiao believed your explanation, but she thought you were lying to her because you asked Mo Zhangxiang to take her to Tengtu Mountain. You originally wanted to handle things here to avoid let her misunderstand. In fact, you don't know that when you do this, it is already wrong. Instead of hiding it, tell her from the beginning. In this way, she will not only not blame you, but also think that you are a person who values love and justice. People. When Yuuru gave Fu Jianxiu a detailed analysis. Fu Jianxiu pursed his lips and fell into deep thought. When Yuuru tapped her index finger on the table, looked at Fu Jianxiu, and twitched her red lips. "Senior, your little girl is angry because she cares about you. Only if she cares about you will she care whether you cheated on her. If you don't care about her, I'm afraid I won't even be angry." After Wen Yuuru finished speaking, the frowning man relaxed his eyebrows, and a faint smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. "Project A, I will give you 5% of the profit." Wen Yuuru. The man she had begged for just now and didn't give any extra points, just because she helped analyze a few sentences, gave her an extra point. Tisk tisk tisk. Zhang Xiaoxiao finished the last subject and had just left the school gate with Chu Hanyu when the servant who took care of the old man appeared in front of Zhang Xiaoxiao and said, "Miss, the old man asked me to pick you up and take you to Times Square. I have a surprise for you." Zhang Xiao. When she went out this morning, the old man said that he would have a surprise for her after she finished the exam, but she didn't take it to heart. Chu Hanyu looked curious at the side. "What a surprise, can I come with you?" Ms. Chu, I'm afraid this is inconvenient. The servant politely rejected Chu Hanyu. Can't I just go home? Zhang Xiaoxiao didn't really want to see the surprise. Her nerves had been tense during the exams in the past few days and she wanted to go back to sleep and relax. The servant smiled in embarrassment. Miss, please don't make things difficult for me, okay? Zhang Xiao was not the kind of person to make things difficult for others. After saying goodbye to Chu Hanyu, he got in the car to see what surprise the old man had prepared. The maid took Zhang Xiao to Times Square and gave her a movie ticket. Miss, you can see the surprise that the old man has prepared for you when you go to the cinema. Zhang Xiaoxiao looked at the movie ticket in his hand and thought to himself, what movie is this old man playing? Not wanting to make the old man sad, Zhang Xiaoxiao still took the movie ticket and walked to the theater. He found the movie hall and went in. The movie had already started showing inside. It was full of people, many of whom were couples. Zhang Xiaoxiao found his own place next to him. The position is still vacant. After she sat down, a text message came over the phone. It was from the old man, my dear grandson, do you like the surprise grandpa has prepared for you? Zhang Xiaoxiao glanced at the big screen, which was showing a romance movie. The hero and heroine happened to meet each other and were about to fall in love. He twitched the corner of his mouth and replied, Grandpa, you can watch the movie at home. Grandpa is not asking you to watch a movie, Grandpa is asking you if you like surprises. Zhang Xiao frowned and looked at the phone screen in confusion. Could it be that he was not watching a movie? What was that? Our end of this chapter. After wearing the book, I became the group favorite. Author, Little Ginger. Chapter 317. Chapter 317. Chapter 317. I haven't completely let go yet. A familiar voice reached Zhang Shishi's ears, and Zhang Shishi's black eyes shrank. She thought that she must not be the person she imagined, but it backfired. When she saw the man sitting next to her, the corners of her eyes he twitched hard. The old man was surprised here and there, and completely frightened. Why did you come back if you weren't abroad? Yanian's lips curved into a slight smile, and he stared at Zhang Xiaoxi with burning eyes. Grandpa Fu, you came back to me. Zhang Xiaoxiao had a dark look on his face. Who is this grandpa trying to trick? I still have something to do, so I'll leave first. You can take your time and see for yourself. Zhang Xiaoxi just wanted to leave without even thinking about it. Every time she met Yanian, nothing good would happen. This man was simply her nemesis. People with conflicting horoscopes are not suitable for meeting. Yanian grabbed Zhang Shishi's wrist with such force that he almost crushed Zhang Shishi's bones. Xiao Xiao, just watch a movie. Don't we even have to be friends? Zhang Xiaoxi. In her opinion, there is absolutely no need for the two to meet. It doesn't mean that they don't even need to be friends, but that there is only one reason why a man wants to be friends with his ex-girlfriend, and that is because he has not completely let go. This woman. We shouldn't meet each other, do you understand? Zhang Xiao sat down and told him in a low voice, not wanting to disturb the moviegoers. But when I was young, Grandpa Fu said you wanted to see me. Yanian looked at her cautiously and with hope in his eyes. Zhang Shi. Zhang Xiaoxi's phone vibrated in his hand. After taking a look at the message, Zhang Xiaoxi felt helpless. Child, now you see the surprise Grandpa has prepared for you. Grandpa knows that you like Yanian. Grandpa brought him back to you from abroad. Do you like it? Zhang Xiaoxiao replied with a helpless look, Grandpa, you are not suitable for creating surprises. When I was young, do you know what this movie is about? It's a story about a pair of lovers who loved each other very much, but because of their parents' opposition, they both died in love. Zhang Xiao. Why did she feel her scalp numb? She looked at Yanian with mixed emotions in her eyes. Child, do you want to eat popcorn? Yanian's starry eyes twinkled. Zhang Shishi grabbed a few popcorns for a moment, and suddenly something touched the corner of her lips. Zhang Shishi was so frightened that she almost screamed. When she saw that it was Yannian holding a piece of popcorn, he put it into her mouth. Zhang Xiao held the popcorn in his hand helplessly and depressedly. "I'll eat it myself. Just take care of yourself." The light in Yannian's eyes suddenly dimmed, and he was stunned. "I know." The movie lasted for 2 hours, and Zhang Xiao felt that these were the 2 most painful hours for her. She always had to be wary of what the boy next to her thought of her. It was so difficult for her that she couldn't even watch the movie. "I don't know what content was put there." 11. Did you see it? In the end, the 2 of them were buried together, so they can never be separated, don't you think? Yannian stared at Zhang Xiaoxi, and there was a feeling of yearning on the young man's face. Zhang Xiao's eyes twitched fiercely. He didn't say anything and walked alone in front. Yannian followed her slowly and slowly. "When you are young, shall we have a meal together?" "Need not. Can't we just have a meal like this?" Yannian stared at Zhang Xiao longingly. End of this chapter. After wearing the book, I became the group favorite. Author, Little Ginger. Chapter 318. Chapter 318. Chapter 318. After all, he is just a poor cannon fodder. Zhang Xiaoxiao looked at Yannian's face and wanted to refuse, but it was difficult for him to do so. After all, Yannian was a cannon fodder and a pitiful person. He might have true love for Miss Baiyu Eguang, but... Zhang Xiaoxiao sighed deeply in his heart and reluctantly nodded to Yannian. "It's just this meal. After eating, you can go back abroad." The change in the expression on Yannian's face was visible to the naked eye. The corners of his slightly pursed lips raised again. "Shall we go eat French food?" Zhang Shi nodded. As if he had been prepared for it, Yannian took Zhang Xiaoxi to a famous French restaurant next to Times Square. This restaurant was very popular because it was opened by Zhao Huiyan, and Zhang Xiaoxi had been there twice. Second rate. "When I came here before, I always went directly, but now looking at the endless queue," Zhang Xiao's face twitched and asked Yannian, "Do we have to come here to eat?" "Well, this one tastes good." Yannian nodded. Zhang Xiaoxi really didn't want to wait in the cold wind. He looked around and finally stopped at a vegetarian restaurant not far away. "Yannian, let's go there to eat." "You don't want to eat French food?" "Well, I suddenly want to be vegetarian." Zhang Xiaoxiao didn't say anything about waiting for his consent, and just walked there by himself, followed by Yannian. The business of the vegetarian restaurant was neither hot nor bad, and the environment was quiet. The waiter led Zhang Xiaoxiao to the private room. "Miss, just order what you want to eat on the computer, and we will place the order directly." "Okay, thanks." Zhang Xiao looked at the tablet and ordered a tofu, stir-fried dandelion, and a piece of hautunia cordata soup. After ordering, he asked Yannian, "What do you want to eat?" Yannianze ordered a salad with mixed vegetables, and the 2 of them drank tea and waited for the food to be served. While waiting for the food, Zhang Shi did not talk to Yannian and just played with his mobile phone. Chu Hanyu said, "Bagua Bagua, what surprise does the old man give you?" Zhang Xiaoxi, emoticon of laughing and crying. Chu Hanyu said, "What is it? If you are curious, tell me quickly." Zhang Xiao, "It's not a surprise, it's a shock." Chu Hanyu. Zhang Xiaoxi, "Yannian is by my side now, do you believe it?" Chu Hanyu. Zhang Xiao said, "Grandpa thought I still liked Yannian, so he brought him back from abroad. I also watched a movie with him, and now I'm having dinner." Chu Hanyu said, "Child, I advise you not to have dinner with Yannian." Zhang Xiao, "I'll go back after dinner." Chu Hanyu said, "When I was young, Uncle Fu called me just now and asked me if you and I were together. I said that you were picked up by Grandpa and taken to Times Square. I guess Uncle Fu should be on the way here." Zhang Xiao. She knew that when she met Yannian, she was as unlucky as if she was possessed by a bad star. Zhang Xiaoxiao ended his conversation with Chu Hanyu, stood up directly, and said to Yanian, I still have something to do, so I won't eat this meal. Yanian stood in front of her and refused to let her go. He said stubbornly, when I'm young, the dishes are all ordered. You can eat and leave, okay? I'm really in a hurry. Get out of the way or I'll get angry. Zhang Xiaoxi looked at him with a cold face. Yanian refused to let her go no matter what she said. When I was young, I knew there was no possibility between us, but can't we just finish a simple meal? End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After wearing the book, I became the group favorite. Author, Little Ginger. Chapter 319. Chapter 319. Chapter 319. The person you like is Fujin Xiu, right? Zhang Xiaoxiao curled his lips and smiled, wanting this guy to let him go. Yanian. Boom. Before Zhang Xiao could say anything, the door of the private room was suddenly kicked open from the outside. The whole process was too sudden. Before Zhang Xiao could retract her smile, she was spotted by someone walking in from the door, and then a cold gaze was shot at her. The smile on Zhang Xiao's face faded, and his heart trembled. He shrank his neck inexplicably guilty and looked at the man who appeared at the door. The man was wearing a black iron coat with a black turtleneck sweater of the same color underneath. His tall figure gave people an oppressive feeling. Coupled with his unchanging indifferent face, it made people even more frightened. Fifth uncle. Zhang Xiaoxiao called him softly. Fujin Xiu's cold eyes like whirlpools in a cold pool stared coldly at Zhang Xiaoxi, his two thin lips pursed into a sharp arc, and he said to Zhang Xiaoxi with a commanding tone, come here. Zhang Xiaoxiao wanted to leave, but without thinking he leaned in the direction of Fujin Xiu. Uncle Wu, I want to go home, but he won't let me go. Zhang Xiao's desire to survive can be given full marks. When Zhang Xiao passed by him, Yanian moved his thin lips slightly and said in a voice that only the two of them could hear, Xiao Xiao, I know who the person who harmed you is. Zhang Xiao's progress suddenly stopped, and he narrowed his eyes and stared at Yanian coldly. If you don't leave, I will tell you who wants to harm you. It's just a meal, Yanian said. Fujin Xiu looked at Zhang Xiaoxi, who was halfway there without expression, frowning fiercely, and directed his cold gaze at Zhang Xiaoxi again. Why don't you come over here? What are you doing there? Zhang Xiaoxiao faced Fujin Xiu's murderous gaze, gritted his teeth, and smiled, Uncle Wu, I happen to be hungry. Let's go back after dinner, right? As soon as Zhang Xiaoxiao finished speaking, Fujin Xiu looked at her and sneered, turned around and left the private room, still feeling cold. Zhangxi. Fujin Xiu left and the waiter came. Yanian sat down, picked up the bowl and chopsticks to eat with me, and I'll tell you when I'm done. It was a matter of life, so Zhang Xiaoxiao sat down, but did not touch the food on the table. He watched Yanian eat, patiently, and finally waited until Yanian put down the bowl and chopsticks and said, tell me, who wants to harm me, how did you know? Xiao Xiao, I still want to ask you a question. Yanian stared at her. You say. Have you ever loved, even for a second? Yanian looked at Zhang Xiaoxiao a little humbly. Zhang Xiaoxia frowned. This Yanian was infatuated, but the real Baiyu Eguang was no longer there. She could not answer for Baiyu Eguang. Yanian is no longer important. You should accept a new life as soon as possible. Yanian smiled bitterly and said, when I was little, the person you liked was Fujin Xiu, right? Zhang Xiao pursed his lips and did not answer him. I just want to know now who wants to harm me. When I was young, do you know how I knew you liked Fujin Xiu? Because of the look in your eyes just now. You can't deceive people when you only have one person in your eyes, but why was it him? Xiao Xiao, do you know that if you like her, You have to bear it? It may not be something you can bear. Yanian stared at her with red eyes. End of this chapter. After wearing the book, I became the group favorite. Author, Little Ginger. Chapter 320. Chapter 320. Chapter 320. The person who wants to kill you is Su Yuan's. I don't like him, Zhang Xiaoxiao replied to Yanian with a serious face. Yanian's eyes were red and he shook his head. He twitched the corner of his mouth and said, "Child, don't deceive yourself. You like him." Zhang Xiaoxiao frowned, feeling irritated, and didn't want to continue this topic with him. It had nothing to do with him whether she liked it or not. She just stayed to find out who was going to harm her. If you keep me here just to say this, then I think we have nothing to talk about. Zhang Xiaoxiao didn't want to stay any longer and was about to leave. She was really stupid. How could Yanian know who the person who wanted to harm her was? He's just a supporting character who doesn't appear much, so he doesn't know much. Thinking of the horrifying look on the boss's face before he left, her heart trembled, thinking about how to go back and face the boss's black face. Zhang Xiaoxiao was carrying a small satchel and passed in front of Yanian. In order to avoid further trouble, he said a rather hurtful word, "There is no need for us to meet in the future." Yanian clenched his hands vertically on both sides. The blue veins on his hands bulged out. His heart was like being stabbed by a sharp sword. There was a blood hole that was bleeding all the time and could not be healed. He said in a hoarse voice, "I want to hurt you." The person is Su Yuan's. Zhang Xiao's body was shaken, and he was stunned on the spot for a few seconds. His soft black eyelashes trembled before he recovered from the shock. The second male lead in the book wants to kill her. What the is this? She provoked whomever. Also, it was the first time she met the second male lead at the airport. Why did she want to kill her? No, it might be because she treated the second male lead indifferently, and the second male lead just wanted to take revenge on her. He was not so petty. "He asked you to tell me," Zhang Xiaoxiao asked Yanian in a tone that was sure of his chances. Yes, Yanian pursed his lips and replied. When he was abroad, the man with an evil appearance and a volatile temperament found him and asked him to tell Zhang Xiaoxiao that he was the one who wanted to kill her. At that time, he didn't believe what the man said. He didn't believe it until the man showed a video. He didn't understand why that man wanted to kill Zhang Xiaoxi, told him, and wanted Zhang Xiaoxiao to know, and even told him his name. How arrogant and crazy this man was. Before leaving, the man also told him, "Don't do some unnecessary things, it's useless." He did not believe in evil at the time, and even called the police and handed over the surveillance of his home to the police, just to catch him. Who knew that after the evidence was handed over, there was no more news, and nothing was heard from him again. At that time, he realized that the man who dared to come to him so openly must have great strength, and a little shrimp like him couldn't do anything about it. So when the old man found him, he returned to the country without a second thought, not to spread the word, but just to see her and be happy. "Yanian, if you go back abroad, don't come back. Do you understand?" After Zhang Xiao said this, he walked away. Yanian watched her leave and sat down with a wry smile. He couldn't help but laugh at himself. He couldn't even live well for himself. He was qualified to protect her. But that man was different. He had enough strength to protect Zhang Xiaoxiao from harm. After all, he was still too weak to even stand next to her. Is this his fate? Is all he has to do is accept his fate? Why was he so unwilling to give up on Zhang Xiaoxi in his heart? He was unwilling to let fate be what it was. He wanted to let fate dictate to him. End of this chapter.